Welcome to Rachel and Ralph's Thought Criminals. That's the new name of our show because we talk about things that are probably going to eventually get us banned everywhere.
Well, they've already gotten us banned on YouTube once, right?
Right.
Just for the less erudite of our listeners, thought crimes were a concept that were pioneered by George Orwell in 1984. Things that the totalitarian state would not let you think. They were deemed thought crimes, and we clearly are flirting with or have crossed the line into becoming thought criminals, Rachel and I have.
Oh, yeah, that's a given. The left already thinks I am, and you're probably well on your way. So
I'm baffling to them. They can't figure me out, which is okay because you can't figure me out either, and I can't figure me out. So we're even.
That is true. That is true. So this is Ralph. He is a regular contributor to Newsmax, and you all know me, regular contributor to Townhall. And this week we have got some pretty awesome stuff to talk about. I wrote the funnest column I have ever written in my entire life.
And the funnest column I have ever read in my entire life. So you go female-enabled person, or whatever I'm supposed to be calling you nowadays.
And the crazy thing about it is the mainstream media, with the exception of like local media in the Seattle area, completely ignored this story.
They did not ignore it. They suppressed it. It was absolutely a case of the vast left-wing conspiracy saying, this is embarrassing. Let's make sure nobody in America outside the locality hears about this. And you scoop the world by bringing it to the world on your marvelous, unskippable Townhall column, Rachel.
Because the left is a genius at taking the most ridiculous things that people on the right say and highlighting them over and over again and claiming that those people represent us, when it could be just, some woman was drinking too much and, made an offhanded comment to a reporter. Well, basically, this is their equivalent. This woman is running for Seattle city attorney.
Wait, just forget the offhanded column when she was drunk to some reporter. We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Jewish space lasers here.
Your favorite conservative woman, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I must admit, I have a certain perverse enjoyment of her. There are a couple of others in there. What's Laura? No, the one from Colorado with the gun-toting restaurant. Oh, Bo Burt, right? There's Bo Burt, and who's that wacko from North Carolina? The guy who is just.
My lefty friend always names him and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, what is it that you guys really hate about him? The guy has overcome so much. He ran for office and won in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I know. And he accused his best friend of having caused the accident, which he caused. It caused him to become wheelchair bound and stuff like that. He is a really, really creepy dude. Sorry. Can't I wish I could. Hawthorne, right? Crawthorne?
Madison Hawthorne.
Madison Hawthorne.
We don't need to beat up on him. The left already does enough of that. So let's move on.
So let's beat up on the city attorney candidate for the city of Seattle that you heroically.
The only reason I even knew about it is because my dad reads this. He lives there. He reads the Seattle Times every day. Otherwise, it would have never come across my radar.
Well, tell our millions of listeners what your dad leaked to you or planted in you, because it is mind-boggling. This makes my dear Marjorie Taylor Greene look almost normal.
She looks really tame. Basically, my dad called because the liberal, and they are super liberal, way liberal, Seattle Times endorsed her opponent, the Republican, who is a walk away, back the blue Republican. I mean, you don't get more conservative than that in Seattle. And so they endorsed her because this train wreck candidate named Nicole Thomas Kennedy has said and done so many insane things. The gist of it is she is an abolitionist, which means today she wants to abolish the police and she wants to
Wait,
abolish jails.
please don't slur the good name of abolitionist. She calls herself an abolitionist.
That's a
And
good point.
abolitionism meant abolishing slavery. She wants to abolish law enforcement. She wants to, she wants to decriminalize crime. And it's kind of like it's hallucinatory. She wants,
Contradiction, decriminalize.
she is praising domestic terrorists, people who blew up a construction site. She is so unbelievable that, according to your column, which I believe, because you never exaggerate and you never report fake news, Rachel Alexander,
Very true.
2 former Democratic governors of Washington State have endorsed her over the Democratic, have endorsed her opponent over this complete whack job. I was never.
And she literally wants to get rid of part of the Seattle City Attorney's Office, the part that prosecutes crime. She wants to completely
the part that prosecutes misdemeanors. Fair. She's not from the article.
This is domestic violence. This is theft. I mean, these aren't just crimes like smoking marijuana.
I know, but please, let's play fair. They don't, but let's us play fair. She's not against prosecuting murder and rape and thought crimes. So she's just.
Oh yeah, we'd be her first target. Are you?
We would be put in. If she ever happened to catch us in Seattle and she got elected as city attorney, we would be sent to life imprisonment without parole as thought criminals. However, you're right. She believes that theft, that crimes against property are a virtue, not a crime. She is
a moral imperative.
A moral imperative to steal. And by the way, I was just for my most recent column in Freedomist, Bill Collier's Freedomist, talking about the hijinks that the donks are up to right now. I was rereading the Communist Manifesto, and this is right out of the Communist Manifesto. Marx and Engels were bragging about how they were in favor of abolishing property rights and taking rich people's property away from them. She's taken it further than Marx, not just rich people's property, poor people's property like us. And so how in the world she ever managed to get this nomination is a tribute to the bankruptcy of the Democratic Party.
Yes, she defeated the longtime incumbent Democrat who was in office, whose main thing seemed to be legalizing marijuana. That seems to be his shtick. And okay, so that's scary because that's who the Democratic base wanted. And then there still is a long list of prominent Democrats, including 2 women on the Phoenix City Council who endorsed her. So, while we might have avoided this train wreck,
the Phoenix City Council endorsed
the Seattle City Council.
Well, you said Phoenix, okay? Were you lying then, or are you lying now?
Hey, I used to live in Seattle. I lived in Seattle proper for like 7 years. Yeah. And then I worked in downtown Seattle another couple of years. So I've been in the middle of Seattle for many years, and there's a reason I left.
The only thing I know about Seattle is that what it was Glenn Campbell's song, that the sky is always blue. The skies are always blue in Seattle. So yeah,
gray and overcast.
Well, tell it to Glenn Campbell. Okay, there was there was a number 1 rock or folk tune back in the 70s before you were born called "The Skies Are Always Blue in Seattle." I think it was Glenn Campbell, like a beautiful child growing up free and wild, full of hopes and full of fears, full of laughter, full of tears, full of dreams to last the years in Seattle. In Seattle.
I don't know that song.
And you said you're from Seattle? Oh, this is so confusing. But listen, that was a great scoop in Townhall. Rachel Alexander, Townhall. What's the name of the column? So people can Google it and read it in its full glory by itself. Because
I named it "Why a Back the Blue Walk Away Republican is About to Become Seattle's Next City Attorney."
Well, it was a brilliant column, but the most brilliant part of it was you broke the cordon sanitaire that the left-wing establishment media throws around, all of their embarrassment, all of their embarrassing characters, while they amplify ours. And by the way, People for the American Way, that crazy Norman Lear group,
Yeah.
right? I was really upset because it turns out that they used me in their direct mailing for 10 years as a poster child for how wacko conservatives are. My fiance is a progressive, and so she happened to get one of their direct mail solicitations, which happened to pass across my eyes. And I called the then CEO of People for the American Way, Ralph Nees, who I was socially acquainted with. And I said, Ralph, I don't object to the fact that you've sent out 1 billion pieces of junk mail vilifying me. But what I object to is you didn't mention my name. I need the exposure. I was the head of a group called Of the People Foundation that was fighting for parental rights, which has now come back into the news. The Supreme Court ruled that parents have have the authority to direct their children's education, unlike, say, candidate Terry McAuliffe, who went on record as saying that in Virginia, who went on record as saying that parents don't have any right to any say over what their kids are
because they're domestic terrorists, right?
Right. Yes, according to Merrick Garland, right, and the FBI. So I was the president of this advocacy organization fighting for parental rights. We did a referendum in Colorado, which we started off 80-20 favorable, but the left poured, tens of millions of dollars of phony advertising in the 10 weeks before the referendum, and we got crushed. But in any case, I called up my buddy Ralph Nees, and I said, Ralph, if you're gonna libel me, if you're gonna insult me, if you're gonna hold me up as all that is unholy and wrong with this country, would you please at least identify me by name? I need the exposure. But did he listen to me? No, yet, comrade. Oh, it was just so sad.
Well, you need more 15 minutes of fame. I mean, we already have millions of people watching our video show, so it's okay. It's okay, Ralph. But by the way, I actually did not know your fiance is a progressive. I never knew that.
Oh, she is so progressive. She's almost a conservative. She is the executive director of the John Cage Trust. John Cage was the Beethoven of the Beatniks. He was a revered composer, most remembered by most Muggles. He's remembered for much more by people in the music and art world, but most Muggles like you and me remember him for his infamous piece called 433, which was 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence in 3 movements. So there, yes, I know it's an acquired taste, but once you get there, you too can be as woke as me. And even though the Washington Post, a columnist for the Washington Post once called me the second most conservative man in the world, a badge of honor. Okay, I am by far the most woke conservative right-wing nut you will ever encounter. So just remember that, Rachel.
That's a good line. I will remember that.
When the thought police come to take you away, tell them that your lawyer is Ralph Benko, and they will tremble with fear.
Okay, on that segment, we will move on to my boy Ralph Benko's interesting column on Biden and hypnotism. We'll tell the viewers what that was about.
Okay, well, first let me establish my credentials, and that is hypnotism is not kooky and spooky. It has that reputation because of Svengali, who was a character in a novelette called Trilby by Georges du Maurier. It was then taken up by Hollywood and its precursors and made to be something kooky and spooky. And then, of course, we had the Manchurian Candidate story with Frank Sinatra and Angela Lansbury, which also made it kooky and spooky. But according to all of the modern research in hypnosis, which does not use trance, it uses reverie, hypnosis is simply the power of believed in imagination, which is actually very powerful, but not nearly as kooky and spooky as your beloved Hollywood would make it to be.
That's
So
not
with that,
my beloved Hollywood. Ugh.
oh, come on. You know you want to become the next Susan Sarandon. Come on, you want to be the next Jane Fonda, and you know what? You'd be darling at it. So I hope
Acting has never appealed to me because I like to use my brain to think of what I'm going to say. I don't like to do what other people tell me to say. I could never be an actor because I don't follow instructions. I don't do that kind of stuff well.
Rachel, that's true, and it's very sad. You put your finger on your number one character flaw. You are really, really, really impossible to boss around. Apart from that, you're near perfect. You're a near perfect human being, but you don't take orders very gracefully. Maybe I can hypnotize you and change all of that. But the point is that the predicate of the column, once we know that hypnotism isn't really kooky and spooky as Hollywood portrays it, is I am one of the top 100 non-clinical hypnotists in the world. I'm recognized as such by the National Guild of Hypnotism, which is the oldest, the largest, and the most respected professional association of non-clinical hypnotists in the world, with over 10,000 members. I've been on the cover of their magazine, of their trade journal, the Journal of Hypnotism, which is the most prestigious hypnotic journal in the world. I'm a quarterly co-columnist in their journal. I'm on their faculty, and I've been appointed. I've been given their highest honor, the Order of Braid, named after Dr. James Braid, who coined the term hypnotism.
Ralph, when I hear your resume and things that you've done, you honestly exhaust me. I can't believe how much stuff you've done.
I exhaust myself, but in any case, I'm just laying out my credentials because it matters. Okay, there are two right-wingers who are self-identified master hypnotists. Myself and Scott Adams, the cartoon behind Dilbert.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, he's got a whole blog, the Dilbert blog, in which he talks at great length about his hypnosis training and his hypnosis insights. So I've written about political hypnosis because I do have both, having worked in or with 3 White Houses, 2 executive branch agencies, gotten legislation passed in the Congress. Okay, not to mention I've gotten planks in the Republican platform, blah, 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 blah. So I've got a political specialty, and I have this avocation of hypnosis. Okay, and so I can see when political hypnosis is being undertaken. And I've written at Fortune magazine and at Forbes and at the Journal of Hypnotism about Trump as a master hypnotist, as has Scott Adams. Okay, but then something very interesting happened. Trump, you remember him, wasn't he president for a while?
Yeah, anti-Trumper.
I'm sure he was. Since he's been taken off Twitter, he's kind of dropped off my radar screen, everybody's radar screen, really. But in any case, he was a master hypnotist, but in Trump's case, it was problematic because he would hypnotize the voters to vote for him, and then he would hypnotize himself to believe his own BS. And then he would come smashing down, creating a smoking crater. He did that when he was a businessman too. He did it with his bankers, and then bankrupt.
Such a distortion of Trump's record as president. I feel like I'm watching the MSM while watching you just say that. I mean,
not MSM, MSNBC. Look, Donald Trump tried to foment a coup on January 6th, which a lot of people are very upset about.
If that was true, he would be in prison right now, okay? No.
Well, I don't know, but all of your QAnon friends should be
miffed. QAnon friends.
Well, come on. Right? I didn't say you're QAnon, but some of your friends must be QAnon. I've met some of your friends.
I don't ever hear anyone talking about QAnon except the left when they go and they dredge up some random guy in Kansas who posted a tweet about QAnon. I mean, that is all there is about QAnon. I mean, it's a made up thing on the left. I mean, I've asked my friends, you know, I actually wrote an article about QAnon in order to educate myself because I didn't know what it was. I just kept hearing the left talk about it like it was some bogeyman.
It is a bogeyman. What do you mean it was like some bogeyman? It is a bogeyman. Okay, you completely made me lose my train of thought. The point is, Trump is as Scott Adams and I have both written, Trump is a master hypnotist. But the essence of hypnotism, according to Professor Fritz Hilgard, the late Professor Fritz Hilgard of Stanford, a very eminent psychologist who spent 40 years studying hypnosis. Hypnosis is nothing but believed in imagination. And Donald Trump could get his bankers to imagine that he was worth lending hundreds of millions of dollars to. And then they did. And then his companies went bankrupt. He managed to get the American people, at least 68 million or so of them, to believe that he was a statesman. And then we had the worst economic growth in the last 7 presidents under Donald Trump. I give him enormous credit.
Hello.
What?
It's because of the pandemic. It's not because of Trump.
And you don't, and I bet you blame Fauci for the pandemic instead of Trump, don't you? That just proves what a great hypnotist Donald Trump is. You've made my point. Anyway, thank you. So
I'm entitled to have my own viewpoint. I don't believe everything Trump says. I form my own decisions and my own opinions independent of Trump. Just because I thought that he was the best option for president at that time doesn't mean that everything he says I believe 100% and I get my views from Donald Trump. I don't get my views from Donald Trump, thank you very much. I've been in politics a lot longer than Donald Trump has been in politics. So you can't just be like the mainstream media and label me.
Rachel, as you know, I've been trying to hypnotize you. As you've inferred, I've been trying to hypnotize you for until all the way back in the heyday of the Tea Party, and I failed. You are.
You're really not that good.
You are. No, I'm the best, but you are completely non-hypnotizable. The point here being is why there's a mystery that Karl Rove and other members of the Republican elite have been pondering in their columns, and that is Joe Biden, your president, cleaned the clock of the progressives in the primary. I'm sorry, all of our president. Okay, but especially yours. Okay, during the primary.
Bill came up with that. Okay.
Bill came up with what?
The alleged president.
Bill Collier or Bill Kristol?
Bill Collier.
Wow, props to Bill Collier. Okay, but on the other hand, I am not part of the a QAnon shaman group that say that it was just imaginary that that Biden got elected. The point here is
you don't have to be a QAnon person to think that Trump really won the election. And you know what? Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. We're almost out of time. So the point here is that Biden shellacked the left in the primaries. He was by far the most centrist, even right-wing candidate among the 17 lunatic fringe people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and other crazy left-wingers who he's running against, and he wiped them out. And so the conundrum that Rove and others posted is, well, after having nuked the left, then he embraced their agenda. Okay, as president, instead of saying, look, you guys are way out there. You're the lunatic fringe. We're not going your direction. He embraced their agenda. And I'm not even talking about transgender admirals. I'm talking about their economic agenda with their $3.5 trillion pig pork bill with a lot of extreme social spending that we would have gotten to pay for. So why in the world would he have adopted the agenda of the people who he conquered? And I, as a hypnotist, know that the people who he conquered appealed to his believed in imagination and hypnotized Joe Biden into adopting their agenda. And they basically said, Joe, or Mr. President, because they obviously wanted to be a little less familiar and a little more respectful. You don't want to go down in history as a tepid moderate, the 21st century Millard Fillmore. You want to either go down in history as the latter day FDR, or go down in history as having gone down in a blaze of glory, attempting to create this massive welfare state. So Joe, even though you beat us like a rented mule, you beat us like a snare drum, you should adopt our agenda, because we will be singing your praises forever for having increased the welfare state, or even if you fail, for having gone down in a blaze of glory, for having created the welfare state. And Joe Biden, a decent man, but like every president, doesn't just want to be a caretaker president. He wants to go down in history. He got hypnotized into this trance that says, I'm going for it. And he embraced this crazy piece of legislation, the reconciliation bill. And now, boy, has he ever painted himself into a corner. I mean, girl. I mean, female gendered person. Has he ever painted himself into a corner? And there you go. That was my Townhall column, my Newsmax column about how Joe Biden got hypnotized by the left.
And I thought that was a brilliant concept you came up with. I would probably characterize it a little bit differently. I would say they just played to his ego. I wouldn't necessarily call it hypnotism. But I wondered, I mean, you literally answered that question for me. I didn't really think it through and figure it out until I read your column. So where do you draw the line from just catering to somebody's ego versus actual hypnotism?
Well, hypnotism is defined by, in my lexicon, as believed in imagination. And so they are complementary qualities rather than adversarial qualities. Okay. If you appeal to somebody's imagination, and in that imagination, you are appealing to their desire for glory, which you may call ego, and you wouldn't be wrong. Okay. That is a wonderful conjunction of psychological manipulation, which hypnosis is not, and hypnosis, which is simply a way of appealing to people's imagination and getting them to believe in it. And by the way, the greatest political hypnotist of all time was Napoleon Bonaparte, who said once upon a time, imagination rules the world. And the left has proved this in their ability to hypnotize Joe Biden into taking a politically untenable, politically weird position by slaughtering them at the polls and then adopting their agenda. I say political mass hypnosis. And on that note, Rachel, time for you to bring this home.
Well, and I just wanted to let our viewers know, I think next week, Ralph and I are going to discuss in another column of his, what's going to happen to Joe Biden as a result of this, where this is all going. Right, Ralph? Right.
That's exactly right. We're going to tell them before it happens, because even though we are not creatures of the swamp. We have not descended into the swamp. We've spent so many decades in the swamp as swamp foxes, particularly Rachel Alexander.
I don't like that term. You can have that one.
Okay, fine. I'll be the swamp fox. And we know the ways of the swamp dwellers, and we know how to explain it to you so you can be ready to know how to cast your vote.
All right, that wraps it up for the Thought Criminals this week. Thanks for watching, everybody.